this panel, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very pleased to introduce, and as Nikolaus said, it probably doesn't need much introduction. But anyways, the gentlemen to my left, they have dual roles, if not triple roles. So I will try and make sure that I introduce them properly. And when they answer, maybe they can also be a bit sort of conscious about which hat they are wearing when they give the answer. That would probably also be interesting. Anyways, sitting next to me is Nikolaus Schües. Welcome.
Good day, thank you.
Yeah. You are the president and chairperson of the board of BIMCO, but you are also the CEO of Reederei Laeisz.
That's true.
And you will be celebrating a long history in a short while.
Yes.
200 years.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you much.
Next, we have Christian Koopmann. You are the president of the German Shipbrokers Association, and you are also the managing partner of Peter Lampke. And did I get it correctly, or?
That's correct, yes. We call it PWL Group. Peter Lampke was the founder, yeah, that's correct.
Thank you.
Passed away, though.
And finally, excuse me, Arnt Vespermann, board member, also VDR, but also the CEO of CPO Holding Offen Group.
Correct.
And then I think I missed out one role for you, Nikolaus, and that is you are also a board member of VDR.
Yes, that's true, but that is too many hats for today. So.
Yes. So we will stay with 2 hats.
Yes.
Yeah? Did I miss out any other hats on the?
No. I'm a very simplistic one. I only have 2.
Very good. So maybe we could try the first question, and Christian, if you could kick us off. So just to set the scene in a way, so after spending the previous decade in the doldrums, I think that's a pretty accurate description. What is the outlook for German shipping today in your view, please?
Yeah, well, in the doldrums, if we see the last 2 years, I would say the doldrums have already passed away. But apart from that, yeah, I think we are getting more or less back to normal, I would say, or a bit of an older normal, hopefully not as bad as it used to be many decades before. But if I look at the current rates, the charter hires in most of the segments, there's a bit of a red sign in front of it. So we see a development over the last months, obviously, that in most categories is not as positive as it used to be, and that is certainly due to the fact that the overall insecurity and the economic, well, I wouldn't say not growth, but very slow growth. So the periods we see from the broker side as well that are being fixed are much shorter than they used to be a couple of months before. We see that a number of fuel-efficient vessels do not get the premium they should be getting, so all that seems that in most segments there's a bit of an oversupply situation rather than an equilibrium or the other way around. So that is a bit of a mixed feeling right now as far as the market sentiment is concerned. And looking at the container trades, well, what do I have to tell you is we see also a sharp decline compared to the last 2 years, which were very exceptional. And also here a bit back to normal in the 10 years comparison, the overall rates have come back. The total volume being shipped worldwide is more or less getting a little bit higher, so from 15.2 to 15.3 million TEU in August, September. There's a bit of a growth, but the rates are not really increasing. Also, that shows that there might be a bit of an oversupply situation on the container side as well. Whilst the trades ex-China are getting a little bit better, ex-Europe is very poor, and that has also the reason that the production, probably in Europe, at least in Germany, is not where it should be, and that I'm not sure whether you touched it already today, but the energy costs in Germany are certainly one of the issues that makes production here not as attractive as it used to be, and there might be some shiftings in the future to come on top of that. Yeah, well, that's a little bit the market scenario we're having, whilst I can see, and I think my colleagues can answer that much better as far as how German owners are tackling this. Of what we see is that German owners have much less focus on container tonnage and are on a wider spread of tonnage in their fleets, which I presume is healthier for the future. Luckily, I think the last couple of years have made the equity position much more healthy as well. So I think they will sustain also certain difficult periods that I mentioned before ahead of us. From what I understand is that the financing of new vessels is as another segment. It is available, but obviously much more costly, and that leads to the fact that many owners in Germany seem to focus a bit on smaller tonnage, for which finance seems to be easier available, even though the projects are not commercially so viable as they used to be because of the high cost involved. And last but not least, we will see in January the ETS coming, so that will be a big question mark on interesting market logic, the trading systems, the container lines. They have the easy part, let's say. They have charges already announced to the clients and like to put it on the container rate. And hopefully the clients will also pay it. Whilst for bulk traders, and I just talked to a tanker owner or operator, it is much more difficult to eventually to get that fixed as well. So that will be very interesting if there will be some market distortions in that sense. And from what I understand is also the CIA carbon industry indicator ruling that is in place is not yet where it should be. So also what IMO is going to suggest there will be very heavily influencing some market outlook from our perspective.
Great insights. Thank you very much. May I turn to you, Arnt? Container shipping has been through a very good period, and I'm not sure whether you have enough pockets in your suit, but maybe you could give some comments. Please, give us some comments on the outlook, please.
No, yes, you're right, but Christian, I think, already correctly referred to the challenges ahead of us also in container. If you look back on the last 2 years, well, there's clearly no reason to complain, and everybody knows that. Whether it's been for container liner operators, and I guess they are the true winners of the pandemic situation. And on the other hand, the owners, which also, via the charter rates, if the vessels were not chartered out on long term, participated in this boom. The situation has changed to a certain extent in container, because in the past, after 10 years of doldrums, many of the owners were in a situation where the vessels were rather poorly maintained, no chance to reinvest, no chance to diversify, and that has changed. I think with the focus on container shipping in Germany, many owners were in the position to make good profits and diversify the fleet, invest in other vessel segments, modernize tonnage, and the situation in pure container shipping today is different than in the last 10 years. If you want to summarize it very shortly, in the last 10 years, I think we were on the hunt for money, and now we're on the hunt for projects. So the pockets are not that deep, but clearly deeper than in the doldrums, and therefore it's a challenge now to find good projects, paying also a good profit. And one has to keep in mind that the alternative you have nowadays, different to the last couple of years, is if you just invest in US state bonds, you get close to 6% interest rate. So a project with 8% profitability looked maybe attractive 2 years ago, but doesn't so anymore today. So therefore, the focus has slightly shifted, and we hear it also from banks we talk to, but also other ship owners, that they are all waiting. It seems to be a long queue out there waiting.
So the US bonds is sort of a benchmark for what makes projects interesting, and you have to be maybe in the double digits to sort of beat the bonds?
Otherwise, it's difficult at least to recommend an investment in a still risky asset like a ship today.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Nico, you can now summarize the outlook for the German shipping markets. And and if you agree that we're out of the doldrums, that's...
Well, we are at the moment out of the doldrums. The question is whether we are in container shipping heading for the doldrums already. I think, Arndt, that the tonnage tax, the legal framework, the stability we have in Germany, does allow for projects to be made. I mean, where do you get 7-8% after tax? So generally speaking, I think we are still in a very solid situation here in Germany. We have market participation in almost all steps of the value chain. And we have a supportive government, we have supportive regulation with the tonnage tax, it's stable, there's no discussion about that. And we have supportive government for innovation, for digitalization, for projects in the area of renewable fuels that we will refer to in a moment anyway. So the general outset for shipping in Germany, given that the unique selling point KG model is gone, and it's not totally gone, it's picking up here and there. Again, that's what I meant, this 7% after tax is not that bad. But given that that is gone, Germany is now on a globally looked at perspective in a comfortable, competitive situation, comparable to Greece, comparable to other countries, Holland, Norway, countries like that. So I think we don't have to hide. There are three challenges in shipping in general. And you know them, of course. The one is the decoupling or de-risking global tension, which we, of course, cannot influence as German shipping industry. You have the ESG and the regulatory environment that is coming with it. And we have, and that I think is something interesting for Germany, an underestimated problem in shipping. Very briefly, the BIMCO head. BIMCO is saying the third largest problem in shipping is people in the forthcoming years, and I think also there we will look at closer. But Germany is very active in ship management activities, and ship management is nothing else than people management, and that is something where I think we have a global position, including now our Cypriotic Germans, which are, after all, German shipping as well. I think we have a good position. Yeah, we have reason to be a bit cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, so we should remain optimistic.
Yes, we can say that after every question.
The sun is coming.
Yeah.
Very good, thank you. That was sort of the warming up round. So I think it's difficult for us at this panel, with your roles, not to touch on IMO and MEPC 80 and the ambition level that was introduced in July this year. So, you know, we are very lucky, I would say, as an industry, to have a global regulator. And actually, a global regulator consists of 175 different governments. So now the governments at IMO agreed this July to accelerate the ambition level for decarbonization of shipping. And I will just sort of repeat the numbers they agreed. So in 2030, shipping overall should reduce CO2 emissions by 20%. In 2040, by 70%. And be net zero or thereabouts. I think that was sort of the diplomatic phrasing, in 2050. Now that is quite an acceleration of where we were, which said in 2050 to be, I think it was 50% reduction.
Yes, the initial strategy.
So maybe we could start with you, Nico. And so what's your reflection on hearing this sort of accelerated ambition level?
Yes, it is ambitious. I think it's good to look back a bit in time. In spring this year, the whole industry was begging for it. In 2018, some people were still against the 50% in 2050. I have some Greek friends who were saying this is unachievable and unnecessary, and the whole environmental discussion is also a little bit out of Greta Thunberg talk. That has changed completely. The shipping industry today is united in saying we want to decarbonize, and we wanted to have a clear path from IMO, so always be careful what you wish for. because that atmosphere changed. And Knut, if you allow me to say that, it changed a bit during London Shipping Week when you were on stage and said, this is not achievable and there will not be enough fuel. So I don't want to take your role as a moderator away, but you managed in that moment a bit to make the optimism into realism. And that's really a little bit where we stand. Allow me 1 minute to say how efficient shipping is, because I think we have to, before we discuss on what we want to do, in here, the shipping industry, we have to realize that we are extremely efficient in what we do. There are 70,000 ships in the world. These 70,000 ships transport 1 ton for 1 mile, which is a ton mile, with an emission of 40 grams of CO2 in average. If you walk home from office for 1.6 whatever kilometers, which is a mile, you will emit during that walk 80 grams of CO2 without carrying a ton. I know that this example, of course, is wrong. It's direct air capture, what you do, it's not emitting fossil fuel, I know all that, but it still illustrates what the shipping industry does. And the reason why I refer to that is because we should not start a discussion, but start an awareness that maybe it's not smart to allocate the energy that we have, the scarce green energy, into shipping. Maybe there are other use on that, but I think we'll come back later. So which fuel, you just said we are forced to remain optimistic. Which fuel will win? Very difficult to say. Probably all. Probably there will be a mix of applications. I don't know whether you want me to go into the magnitude of electricity that we would need.
Please.
Because you have to realize that if we want to decarbonize these 70,000 ships, you will need the equivalent of 700 nuclear power plants to be built. At the moment, there are 350 power plants in the world. So if you want to use the equivalent of 700 power plants in renewable energy, there you will have scarcity of solar panels, you will have scarcity of windmills, you will have scarcity of electrolysis. There is no Haber-Bosch factory to produce ammonia in those quantities. It will be virtually impossible to manage that. And if shipping is forced to decarbonize, we will manage and we will buy it because we are a price-insensitive industry. Overall, among each other, we are competitive for the last dollar, but overall, we are price-insensitive. So we will buy it. We are globally regulated. If that is the law, we will do it. Whether that is smart to take that scarce energy away from shore-based CO2-reducing applications, I don't know. I think it's, if I said in another interview, and that is maybe a little bit difficult to say, but if we would have a world leader, if God would be on the panel here, maybe
The Lord himself.
the Lord himself, maybe he would say, you're great, do your effort, you emit 2.6% of the global emissions, do something, but not within the next 10 years. Leave it alone for 10 years because there are much better use of the scarce fuels that we have in the world. I hope this was not too provocative, but it's a way to look at it. And if it was too provocative, that was my Laeisz head and not my BIMCO head.
I think you just put a lot of expectation on Nikolaus for his future panels, who should be on them, but that's for you to deal with. But I mean, Nico, you said that I was, say, turning the sentiment during London Shipping Week, but I think you sounded pretty much like me just now.
Well, you convinced me as well. No, to be honest, I still remain optimistic, but not with fuels. there are other things.
Yes.
Well,
Please,
yes,
Christian.
and
Thank you.
just one, I'm not as experienced and with the knowledge base that you have in that field, but if it's true, and that's what I heard, if already this 20% goal could be achieved by ultra slow steaming, theoretically speaking, then exactly leave it like this, because that is something that is already being done. And if you see the investments in design and in fuel optimization, et cetera, that is, we shouldn't just stand still. But I mean, the mix of carbon-free fuel is unclear. And there's another subject. I'm coming from a port agency point of view. This is a little bit my role. You would have to have different bunker facilities in all the ports. Now look even at the port of Hamburg. Are we prepared to have different bunker facilities here? No, we are not. And the political will, the government is not really in favor of having ammoniac and methanol and everything year round. And that is something we also have to keep in mind. Apart from the availability, it is also the infrastructure that is really lacking, at least in many ports. That would be our role, in fact, to convince governments to not only make a smile and demand something, but also do something about the infrastructure. And frankly speaking, at least in the German ports, I'm currently not that optimistic that we, with all our long planning, I mean, it takes about 20 years to plan something like this, except it is an LNG terminal. That's something else. We learned that. But that is something, there's a big question mark of how we will tackle that.
Thank you, Christian. Arnt, please.
Just one comment to Nico's reference to price-insensitive industry. I think we saw over the last 2 years, at least in the container liner industry, with for sure very drastic freight rate increases, that it is or can be a price-sensitive industry, because at least the increased logistic costs were used or misused by many industries then to convince final end customers that higher prices need to be paid because of the higher logistic costs. So it is not fully insensitive, depending on the goods for sure. And I believe that it will be a battle between also the different fuels, but at the end it's only the cheapest one that will win. So the cheapest solution to just achieve the 20% reduction or the 70% reduction then in 2040, that fuel will clearly be the winner. I don't believe that we will over a long period of time have different fuels. There are not that many industries where you see different fuels. If you think about the airline industry, there's one fuel. If you think about the truck industry, there's more or less one fuel. Why should it really be different in the long term in the shipping industry? In the short term, it's maybe the right approach. Long term, it might not. And as you, Christian, rightfully said, the 20% are not the scaring one. I think there are many also manual ways of achieving this target. The 70%, that's where we have to make the decision.
That's true.
Excellent, thank you very much. So a lot of reference was made to this fuel availability. So in our latest forecast to 2050 report, we said that the better fuels will be very hard for shipping to access in 2030, because we have visibility until 2030, both with the plants that are already there, the ones that have been approved, and also those that are planned but not yet have a final investment decision. And just to give you the key facts, so shipping, to meet the IMO's target of 20% reduction in 2030, shipping will need to source between 30 to 40% of the global production of the better fuels. Now, shipping today consumes around 3 to 4% of the fuel. So that led me to the comment that it's very unrealistic. But I said it also in the context that we cannot rely on fuels to solve the issue. We have to focus on efficiency. And that's also something that is important. So I would like to, hear it from you, and maybe Arnt, you can start this one off. What are your take on this outlook?
I completely agree. I said before, I think specifically the 20% target is a target you can achieve with operational excellence and biofuel additions and slow steaming. However, the 70% target can't be achieved with these manual adjustments. There you clearly need a different type of fuel. Even biofuel would not fully cover that.
Thank you. Christian,
Yeah,
anything?
and isn't it also a price? I mean, if I'm correct, more or less, that you need, if you look at methanol, you need twice as much methanol to have the energy, same energy density or than with heavy fuel. So the vessels need somehow to store it, and again, it will be much more costly. So even the price effect, we come to that later. I mean, who is in the end has to pay it? It will be the consumer, one way or the other. Not in all market situations. So we will see next year what the ETS, how it really will function. Are the owners able to convey it to the shift it to the consumers or the charterers? Yes or no? But in the long run, it will increase prices and sensitivities in that sense, and not everybody will take it easily. So from that point of view, I'm also very worried if we don't find other means of fueling. That is the sense. It will not be probably methanol in the way that you just mentioned, which we are not able to produce.
Excellent. Nico, please.
Yeah, let me try to return a bit to the optimism now.
Thank you.
Because, I want to be the nice guy. But it's not always easy to be the nice guy. But let me try. Well, before I make it better, let me make it worse.
Sounds like a Hollywood movie to me.
You just mentioned that we will need 40% of the planned renewable sites. There are 2,200 renewable sites, solar and wind, out of which you will have 40%. Of these 2,200 renewable plants, FID decision was taken for less than 10%. So that is very ambitious. Your 40% already is very ambitious. Nevertheless, I agree with what Arnt and Christian said. You will have means in air lubrication. I'm a strong believer of carbon capture in certain applications. You will have the technological optimization. There is wind. You have the blue wispy rule, not sail fast and then wait, have the optimization in the middle of the ocean and arrive on time in ports. That will help. In the long run, and there the view expressed on the Cyprus Shipping Week was correct. Slow steaming, whether you call it shaft limitation or whether you call it CII to mention something operational, or EEXI, ship description, whether you call it engine limitation, in the end it's speed that will do the job for 2030. So 2030, at least, let's say, we are optimistic, and 2040, let's work on it, but cross the bridge when you get to the river.
Wise. I'm very impressed, but I'll make a note of that.
Knut, if you allow me,
Yes, please.
One addition. I think it is also important that it's obvious that in at least or maximum 5-10 years' time, there will be not only a kind of battle or fight between the participants of the shipping industry for these green fuels, but within all industries for these green fuels. And it is not a challenge, I think, for a technical challenge at the end for ship owners to bunker and operate a vessel with green fuel. And if the governments force us to do so, we will do so, and they do. But it's also important that it's not only the customers at the end carrying all the burdens, because all the taxes, ETS, is maybe only the starting point, will have to be paid finally by the customer. But it shouldn't be the governments cashing in ETS fees more or less as an additional tax to spend then, but these should be returned one or another way to the industry, also to be still in a position to offer interesting transport possibilities finally to their customers. It can't be that we are more or less the ones that have to pay the full burden of this approach and pass it on directly to customers, whereas the governments are the ones staying with the money, having just additional funds. That's not the purpose of an ETS and of the system.
This was now your Verband Deutscher Reeder hat. Well done, well done.
No, well done.
Very good. Seems like you're all in agreement on that point.
I think we can't be. I mean, it's a very, very valid point.
Excellent. Now, if we just have a reflection around the accelerated ambition level, but also what that means to, you mentioned it, around the complexity on the vessels. You mentioned air lubrication systems. There are many other wind-assisted propulsion. There are many systems that can be introduced. Our forecast for the upskilling of seafarers, if you look towards 2050, is that with the increased ambition level agreed in July, we move from 300,000 seafarers that will need upskilling to 750,000 seafarers by 2050. So that's a huge task, and it's a huge challenge. And I would like to have your reflections on that. And I'm not sure, Christian, if you're in the best seat to start, or if you want
not really,
to pass
because
it on.
we are not so much. I think the managers and operators and owners have much better insight on that. But I just wanted to remind you that is the seafarers on board, but we need also skilled, let's say, seafarer staff on shore, like pilots, like in the port operations. And so we lack that because there's a huge amount of people. If you look at pilots, I mean, so you would say pilots. It's not easy to find pilots for instance, in Germany right now, because the people are getting older and nobody wants to have that job, or it's just for a different amount of money that is nobody wants to pay again. So that is another. It's not the most important problem, but it pays into the same line.
That's right, yes. Nico, would you like to go first or second?
So, yes. This is as I mentioned in my opening, an underestimated problem. It's a huge opportunity for those who engage in that field, and some of the ship managers, of course, are doing it. And we have the startup here in Germany from Isabel Rickmers, who I saw sitting somewhere over there. She's waving. So there are. You will listen to her later on a panel as well, I think. So there are good opportunities. The number I have is that by 26, that is in 2 years, more or less, 89,510 certified officers will be missing, according to the ICS BIMCO Seafarer Employment Report from last summer. That is a lot of people. And on top of that, you need the upskilling of these people to live with a new LNG fuel, what you have mentioned. So it's a good advice to any ship owner to be nice to his people, because without your people you have steel, and not very valuable steel, probably without seamen to run it. So what we think should be done, because there is huge competition from ashore, there is huge competition from the partners of the seamen saying, come home or I walk away. There is a different life for seamen. We have to make their stay on ships attractive. We have to make it safe. The ESG is not only environment, it's social and governance. We have to make it for them secure, and we have to appreciate what they do. Seamen are looked at as workers from some remote islands who do a job on a ship sailing from A to B. If you would have a factory ashore, which costs between 50 and 150 million US dollars, you would not call somebody who is running it as a chief executive officer, which is the equivalent to a captain who is running your asset at sea. You wouldn't call him a seaman and mean by that he is a more or less educated guy who knows how to steer a rudder. So we have to make sure ship owners are appreciated as what they are. They are controlling the blood flow of world trade. Is that a nice way to say it?
I think so. Yes, I'll make a note of that too. Arnt, please.
I can just repeat what Nico has said there. And keep in mind that it's not that long ago that the position of a seafarer was called an old-fashioned job that will soon be replaced by automated vessels. And what we've read about it, now we might need double as many as we have today. So I think the pandemic has made it very clear also to the broader people that seafarers, shipping is vital for the world. BIMCO has done, by the way, a very good video in that respect on the relevance of shipping. And one should just have a look at this video again and again to see how important this job is. We have to make it very clear, not maybe only here in Europe, but also outside, in specifically Asia, how relevant that role is, how important, and how attractive it is. And it has to be, again, an attractive, a sexy job. I mean, nowadays, not everybody can become an influencer all around the world. We need people sailing on board our ships, and we have to convince them that it's an interesting, future-proof role that will not be replaced immediately.
Excellent. I support the recommendation on the BIMCO video. That is really a great video. Excellent. Time is slowly running out, so maybe if you could be, a little bit of an elevator pitch on this last question. So at the Global Maritime Forum a few weeks ago in Athens, there was sort of a lot of talk around there is too much talk and there is no action. What's your take on this, please?
You want to start?
You go. You're the nice guy.
Nico, come on.
So
start nicely.
So now we already imagine having a discussion about who's doing the talk. That's funny, because I think there is walk. We can see that. That the industry is discussing it so much, and that things are actually not only being discussed, but being put into action. We have, for example, a small research vessel that we are running on methanol. It will be the first seagoing German, well, it was supposed to be the first seagoing vessel run on methanol because she's so heavily delayed, because the main engine is so difficult to make, that I think there will be another one coming before her. But she is then run on biomethanol. So it works. She will be there. Most shipping companies have activities in the field of ammonia combustion, at least under study. Or you have the different other activities. The train left the station and it's rolling. So let's not talk ourselves down in what we do.
If I just see what big companies do, and that's the point, it's still a relatively fragmented market, and I assume that smaller owners do not have the means to do these big things all on themselves, on their own. If you look at, for a company like Maersk now procuring on a big scale, not everybody can do that. So the fragmentation here is difficult to go into to elaborate exactly what is the right way, and that's why forums like this are very important, or BIMCO and IMO, to consolidate opinions of, for instance, which is the right view, which is not. On the other hand, there's a regulation also very important, and if the regulation is not following SWIFT, so where should we go? So it's a bit of a hen and egg problem. Is the first a regulation, then we move, or do we move first and the regulation follows? That is, to a large extent, an unanswered question, unfortunately.
Excellent, thank you. Arnt, please.
There's clearly more uncertainty in the industry, causing more talks, that is clear, but there's also a lot of action. I mean, you just have to look at the order book, you have to look at the fuels, and that it's the procurement of fuels. So I don't think there is anybody here in the room who has a bore-out syndrome. It's clear for me there is a lot of action.
Excellent. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your insights and for sharing your views. And as time has run out, I would just like to thank the audience for your patience with us. And I would like again to thank Nikolaus for an excellent setup. And we are done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.